I do not consider myself as a guru or a master. I do not fit into any frames at all. I am one of those numerous expressions of the universe. Every expression has a purpose and a duration. I exist as a reflection of the true world, a world without dualities. Here, all are one, all are same. When all expressions dissolve, only love remains, unconditional love.
Welcome back to the another episode of Viewpoint, the official channel partner of Altruistic Association of India. Today our guest is great Mohanji, the world famous humanitarian and spiritual leader, especially a Malayali. He started so many organizations like Mohanji Foundation, Act for Hunger, Amuk Care, Guru Light, Early Birds Club, Himalayan School of Yoga, etc. Namaskaram.
Namaskaram.
Mohanji, you started your humanitarian work very early. Can you explain the initial struggles, maybe challenges, and can you remember all those?
When you really start doing things, people will suspect you have an ulterior motive. So it takes time to overcome it. So initial days, people don't trust you. Then you got to repeatedly do the same thing over and over again to win trust. Respect has got to be earned through consistency, consistent action, and conviction. If I don't believe what I do, my action will not be powerful. The effort will not be reaching the right people. The activity starts attracting people, not Mohanji. Mohanji is the initiator. That's only in the beginning. Then the activity starts happening, and activity starts reaching people, making a difference in their lives. Then they start talking. Now it's 18 years. Never expect a cakewalk in the beginning. You got to really put in your effort. Unless you join an organization which is already known. When you join an organization which is already known, then it's easy because you become part of it and you can have a smooth sailing. Otherwise, you got to really work hard to put your mission in place with conviction. Recently, one great Swami, one great saint asked me this question: How do you manage this? I said, it's simple. I don't manage this. There's no management. I have made a platform. Everything is transparent. Activities are clear. Intentions are clean. It works. It just happens. So that there is this method is in place now. But until the method is in place, you got to really work hard. And that needs a lot of courage, especially to overcome the minds which blocks your progress. They tell you that you're not good enough or you can't do it. I have tried, it never worked. People give their limitations and they try to put it on you. So overall, you feel very suffocated in the beginning, but you got to keep moving. The society gets an idea, this man knows what he's doing and he will do it. Then a lot of volunteers come. So clarity is definitely needed, courage is needed, commitment is needed, conviction is needed. All these things are extremely essential.
Mohanji, as your tagline, one world, one family. In this present world, most of the people are becoming more and more selfish. How can we practice it in the real sense?
You can see that a lot of people are of basic level. I'm not trying to discriminate people, but what I'm saying to say is that many people are only concerned about themselves. So we call them kind of animal men. Animal men doesn't mean that they are animalistic. That means they are like how do animals do? They just wake up in the morning, they go for food, and when they are full, they will rest. Then they will spend the night. Then again, food, rest. This is the pattern. We are not even thinking about what we can do for the world. Most of the people. So then you refine into a level of human, where you are really considerate about the whole world. not only you. You are also thinking about the entire world, and or at least your society. Next level, then you reach a level of a saint human. A saint human is somebody who looks at everybody as himself, or loves to share. He would like to share, and he would like to give to everybody, and so that this is refinement. So selfishness to selflessness is the refinement. It's not that everybody born as a human being have that refinement. This has to be nurtured, cultivated, and unfortunately, in today's education system, we do not teach this. What's being taught? Competition, comparisons, success. Success is connected to materials. Not success is connected to freedom of mind or freedom from mind. For me, success means freedom from mind, means mind is not enslaving me. I'm not a slave of mind. This is freedom for me. But society looks at freedom, or society looks at success as material wealth or some position in the society. Usually, money is the criteria for success. Now, coming to our organization, One World, One Family, I've traveled to many countries, many places. I've conducted programs in many countries, places, and what I have observed is that the basic emotional pattern of people are same. When you see this, the whole tapestry of existence, there's no difference. Culture is different, some traditions are different, lifestyles are different, but people are not different. All they need is peace, all they need is love. I also believe that the entire world, with all its flora and fauna, animals, birds, and beings, is the responsibility of every refined human being. And the refinement should be visible through this, our practice of being one world.
Monji, how is karma is influencing in our present life?
Karma is inevitability. See, you have a time of birth, a time of death. In between, what happens is laid out over time. So imagine you are living for 80 years. The things which are supposed to happen at the age of 20 has to happen at the age of 20. It can't be preponed or postponed. Like that, each year, each point of life, there are experiences associated with the time, space, and the person, and also certain awareness at that time. See, the awareness is different at the age of 10 and at the age of 20. So this whole tapestry is called karma. It's a karmic tapestry. That means from the beginning till the end. When you start realizing that you are living in this world and you have a personality and you have an identity, identification, and a space, and in within which you are expressing or experiencing life. And what causes this karma? Desires of unfulfilled nature plus inclinations. So these two things, imagine inclination or tendency that we have. Each child has a tendency, each person has an inclination. That's the vehicle which desire sits on and drives. And that's what we call life. Waking state life, the state when we are awake, when there is an external world where we can interact and experience out of. That's the waking state. But we also have a dream state which is equally important. But dream state sources out of memories of experiences from the waking state. So dream state is equally important. There is fulfillment happening in dream state. But dream state has to source from something within, not outside. But waking state has the whole uh, outside world to work on. So karma works both ways, in the waking state and the dream state. Then we go into a deep sleep state where it's total nullification. It's like a death state. You don't exist consciously. Don't exist consciously. So these two states are distinct in its character, in its experience, constitution, everything. And then deep sleep state completely puts the shutter down. You neither have an outside world nor have an inside world. So outside world and inside world are both collapsed. Then you reach a deep sleep state. Then you come back to the outside world again. So this is the cycle of existence each day. Karma lies over it. So what you will experience, what duration you will have with that experience or similar experiences, and how you will continue with it is all bound by karma. So this is karma. We don't think what we are when we are in deep sleep state. When everything is nullified, do we have a personality? There's nothing.
Nothing.
So that state is a reminder each night that look here, what you're projecting in the world has nothing to do with what you are in the when you are in the dream state. And that has nothing to do when you are in the deep sleep state. So each day this training is happening, the reminder is happening, but we ignore it. And we come back and say, oh, I'm Mohanji. And Mohanji is like this. This is Mohanji's personality. I should talk like this, behave like this.
Yeah, first.
This is how the whole thing works, right? So it's interesting, if you look at it this way, you see it's a role play, it's acting, playing the role. You play the role of the father, of a guru, perhaps, or a son, or a husband, or a wife. You play roles. You're playing roles, and see, each role has its distinction. Some role you love to play, some you don't like to play. You see,
Yes, sir.
but you have to play each role.
Right, yes, sir.
Human being or a person does not have to learn karma. Karma is taking them forward. So just have to understand and accept it. Okay, this is the situation, this is the time and space, this is the awareness, and this is where I have to perform in the present. Past you're finished, future you don't know, in the present you have to function. So if you really want to understand karma, just operate in the present and play each role well.
In this present world, comparison and expectation is going on. Being a teacher, I am experienced with the students and parents.
Yeah.
What's your comment on this? Most of the viewers, maybe they are parents and teacher and students. What's your advice for them?
See, how can you compare an orange with an apple? See, the creation of this world. You look at any creation. Take a tree. Imagine this tree has a million leaves. Each leaf, if you take, examine it, it'll be different. So that detailed is creation. So we are refined beings, supposedly with refined intellect. I can't be you, and I don't need to be you, right? What is the uniqueness that I carry? I am being myself. You are yourself. That's the uniqueness you are giving to this world. How can I compare myself with you? Or why should we compare at all? If at all we are comparing, we are only proving that we are living in ignorance. So, what is the right method of education then? To understand the uniqueness of the individual, the child, and allow them to blossom it 100%. That's the right education. That much patience, every school and every teaching education system, or every education system should implement. That patience to look at the child, understand the child, and allow him to bring it up, nurture the whole uniqueness, and don't create bricks on the wall. That's exactly what we're doing now. Our education system is creating bricks on the wall. In other words, it's creating mediocrity. You got to make slaves with all these children. That's exactly what's happening. If a and you see, most of the people who have done great in life are not educated. So where is the problem here? Education has made mediocrity, while if you're not educated, you are yourself. So isn't it a good warning bell? Isn't it a good reason to understand that there is something wrong here? So, if you nurture the uniqueness of an individual, you create a great personality, even a legend. Legends are made, or legends happen, because they did not compromise. I have a thought, I believe in something, I have deep conviction, I have the courage to act on it. Many times we don't have that. Why we don't have it? Because we compare. What if I fail? No problem. I have failed many times personally. I failed many times. I have trusted people. People betrayed me, betrayed my trust. So what did I learn from there? They cannot have integrity. Should I suffer about it? I don't suffer. Why should I suffer? If I trusted somebody, they did not reciprocate the trust. It's not my problem, isn't
Yes,
it?
yes.
So while we are living this existence, if you are in the affair of teaching, I didn't say business of teaching because teaching cannot be business.
Yes.
So in your job of teaching or your service of teaching, make sure each individual remains an individual, and only that much knowledge is needed to handle life. The real examination is life itself. I always believe the only real examination in a lifetime is to win your mind. If you won over your mind, you won over everything.
Of course.
Otherwise, your mind is completely controlled by concepts and you are moving, walking, talking concepts. It's a tragedy. It's indeed a tragedy. There's no individuality here. You see 1,000 people having same faces. What is this?
Yeah,
Earth
of
is
course.
not like that. The creation is not like that. Human beings unfortunately wanted to make stereotypes, and in the bargain you lost individuality. 7.5 billion people, how many people you know in the world? You will not know because you cannot see it. The world cannot see it. World created such people so that world can control it. You see, if you create mediocrity, you can control them. If people are unique, you can't control them because they are seriously unique.
Seriously.
You see, they are realistically unique, so you can't control them. That's exactly the fear of the leaders, to have people uncontrollable. So what you do? Control them with education. They don't go anywhere. They're stuck. Have you seen people who are highly qualified end up in desk jobs, and they end their life like this? You see, very, very brilliant, intelligent people, but people who probably fail in many exams become successful in life. How is that possible? So the learning did not affect them, or the teaching did not affect these people who were called retarded in that way. But in real life, they were successful because they were not bound by the boundaries of education.
Education.
So comparison and competition is absolutely nonsensical. You cannot compare, you cannot compete. Instead, if you want to compare, compare with yourself from yesterday to today. If you want to compete, compete with yourself, improve what you can do. But again, I do not believe in perfection every day. I'm imperfect. It's okay. You see,
No.
through imperfection, you enjoy a kind of stability. I'm not saying that deliberately be imperfect. What I'm saying that I'm not focusing too much on perfection, and in that bargain, I miss the enjoyment. You got to experience and enjoy life. I love life. I really love life, and I accept whatever life has given me. The comedies and tragedies and horrors of life I have accepted. There's nothing else you can do. But at the same time, never be bound by them. I'm not addicted or bound by any of these emotions, nor people, nor relations. You got to be yourself, and everything is part of you. Everything is the good and the bad and the ugly are part of you. You got to be
All inclusive.
all inclusive. The moment you decide, I'm only good, you failed. That's not the way life is. Then that's not. You are a mixture. When you are engaged into this world, you attract many things. Many things go through you, as emotions, as concepts, as various feelings, and so many other factors. Got to accept them.
As most of the people at the time of when they are reaching to death, they are more repentant. And what's your opinion about? Is that repentance will be helpful, or what should be the strategy for that?
Well, before death, we should know we're going to die. Someday we will die, but we live as if we will not die. We see, even if we see death outside in the world, we think that okay, they've died, but we are still alive, and it's so. I believe that everybody should be reminded that there is death by visiting graveyards or having funeral sessions. So, I mean, attending funerals, etc. Because we need to know, we need to remember, or we need to be reminded that there is an end to this story. So, it's very important. See, in our system, Vedic system, There is brahmacharya. Brahmacharya is a time where you acquire knowledge. You are only concentrated on acquiring knowledge. Then comes grihastha. That's a time when you expound your knowledge. You sell your knowledge for the sake of money, to have a family, to create a life of one's own. It need not be marriage only. It can be grihastha. Doesn't mean you get married, but that's a space where you are selling your skills to earn money. Then comes vanaprastha. That's a stage of awareness where you are becoming aware that all that you earn from earth cannot be taken further. You got to leave behind. So while earning, you can't think like that. Then you will not earn. So while earning, you're focused on earning money, earning wealth, earning whatever you earn, name and fame, whatever. Then you reach a stage of vanaprastha, and then you realize all these things will not come with me at the time of death. The possessions, positions, relations, all the appreciations, accolades, and all those things, they all stay on earth. You leave without anything. So that awareness will get you a detachment or help you to detach. That's the time of vanaprastha. Vanaprastha is basically a state of or a stage of detachment. There you have your children or your family, all the things you have, but you have a clear awareness. One day they will inherit or I will leave without them. Then it's reconnection to your source. That's the last stage. That's the reconnection. So, what am I? Who is leaving? This question comes. At the time of death, who leaves? I leave. Then who is this I? That question comes. And when you realize that question, it's me that is leaving, and when I leave, that body is called a dead body of somebody. So the body is not me. Personality is not me. Then you connect to the source, which is you, the supreme source, the pure brightness, and you as a singular unit brightness. And then the rest of the time is in that connection. So there is no tragedy then. At the time of death, you exist, you leave. Because you know that, okay, this show is over, I'm leaving. So there's no, oh, what will I do with my materials? I collected a lot of people. I have many relations and I can't leave them. That question itself doesn't exist. So then you are exiting smoothly. That is exactly how we should live,
This body.
without effort, smoothly, with full awareness. Whatever I've earned here, I have to leave behind, and I will leave behind, and that's not a tragedy. So, when somebody is struggling with the thought or the fear of death, it's important to give that awareness right from the childhood, or right from that. We must tell them, see, look here, all that you do here, all that you collect from here, all the aspects of life that you experience here, they all have ends. Even you have an end. This understanding should be well cultivated along with the morality. We teach morality. Don't do this, do this. This is taught. But in which context? It has to be taught in context that one day when you leave from here, let there be no regrets, no guilt, no disappointments, because you have to leave sooner or later. So, with this clarity, if a person leaves, I think they will live in altruism, because they know very well there is a beginning, there has been a beginning, there is an end. While living this life, I have to live my fullest, and it's possible. But otherwise, me and mine always catches you, gives you pain, suffering. So suffering is our choice. You know, if you see, its death state is like our deep sleep state. We are going into that state of nullification each night. In death, we go for that when we are shedding this body. This is the only difference. So, with clarity, with understanding, with the proper guidance, people can remain stable all the time. There is no fear. Fearlessness is a state of spiritual maturity.
Actually, you spoke about the Brahmacharya, Garhastya, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa. But in this current world, how can be a person practice Vanaprastha and to Sannyasa? there is a process is there, and is it relevant for this situation about this concept?
Well, in the old times, the only difference was people used to leave their house and go elsewhere. So that detachment is perfected. That's when you earned a lot of things. Your next generation has come. Now they started living together. So if you continue to become a burden to them, there could be differences in opinion and confusions in the house. So the elders decide, okay, now they are on their own. We handed over everything. Whatever we could do, we have done. Now we're leaving. And when they leave, the children will support them, give them materials, and said, okay, you go. Some of them go to Kashi. So Vanaprastha was practiced as an activity also. Today we don't do that. Today, what is the best thing to do? Create that awareness in mind. I have all these things, but nothing is mine. I don't need them. I don't need any of them. That's exactly the understanding that can be cultivated now, which needs awareness. It's basically a perfection of awareness. You being aware that I have all these things which I've taken from earth. I didn't bring anything. I came empty-handed. There was nothing in my hand. I I, I brought all these things, or I got all these things here. Now I don't really need them or have them after a while, or when I'm leaving, I don't have them. I will leave empty-handed. That awareness can be practiced even now,
Even now.
and then you connect to what is permanent in you. The physical is removed, mind, intellect, ego aspect is removed. The spirit aspect or the activity aspect also can be removed. Then comes the soul, the Atma Tattva, the principle. That principle is real. That principle is imperishable. It's eternal. That understanding can if you concentrate on that, and that understanding can stabilize you on a much larger level, or permanently, and that's enough for a reconnection with your source. That reconnection will help you. That even now it's possible. You don't have to go anywhere. Himalaya is right here in your mind. You see, you don't have to go searching for Himalayas.
Most of the saints are from India, comparing to other countries. And you traveled across the world, even to Himalayas you started. And what's your opinion about it? Why it is the more or number of saints are in India?
My take on this is different. See, the visible saints are in India, but I believe that there are many enlightened people all over the world. But what's happening in many countries, because of the mental boundaries people create uh, on various aspects of life, like concepts, for example. People have concepts, theories, opinions, and various fundamental thinking thought processes, which restricts a person to behave in a particular way. If you don't behave in a particular way, you are an outcast. So, some of them who have fully realized their soul, or attained realization, they are not accepted well in many places. Here it's accepted. Here we accept everybody as they are. So, in any place where people are accepted as they actually are, as natural as they can be, there will be many masters. But which country acknowledges it? So I feel that there are many saints, men and women, in everywhere. Saints, I mean, who are settled into themselves, who is fully connected to themselves. They are realized. They are there everywhere, but they are not accepted. Many of them could be in mental asylums. They're treated for madness. So when you become fully freedom, there's no pattern of behavior possible. How you will behave, you cannot predict. But society has created a predictable behavior pattern, and people are asked to fit into it. That's impossible. So I believe that in India we have a lot of masters, great masters, and some of them literally look like madmen, amazing masters, but their outward behavior were like madmen. They eat what they get, they sleep everywhere, and they behave like madmen. We accepted them
Yes.
as they are. But in other places, they are put behind bars or in asylums. So, this is probably the reason why they are not all that visible. But the moment you start understanding that the realization or the spiritual awakening brings you back your original nature, and it can't be defined in a structure. If this is clearly understood, I believe that you can actually witness many more realized
Minimal,
masters
yes.
of the world. And they are needed because these are the people who need nothing from earth, and they will give everything they have to earth. We need such people.
Altruism, the concept, you started very early life itself, and recently we formed an organization, Altruistic Association of India. And please mention your reflections on altruism and your concept on altruism and Altruistic Association of India and its future also.
When you have earned your money, or when you have gone through life situations and you have found certain things in life, at certain point in time you start asking yourself a question: what is there in life? What more is possible? So that's a time, that's a point in time when you really start thinking, what gives me permanent happiness? Then you come to a realization that sharing gives more happiness than procuring, securing. What is the future of this? If we really live the life of a human being, sharing is part of it. All the religions talk about sharing. Everybody says that through sharing you can grow further. Through sharing you become richer. See, when you share what you have, it's like a water well. You draw more water from the well, more water comes into the well, fresh water. If you don't take water from the well for a long period of time, it becomes stagnant water, not good for drinking. But if you keep taking water out of the well, fresh water keeps coming, and that's good for drinking. This we know very well. Like that, when we utilize our resources in a positive manner, continuously and consistently, more resources comes in. More resources comes in, and also grace comes as the main resource. For grace factor to happen, we need to be grateful about what we have, and we share it spontaneously, abundant. I mean, in your abundance, in your in the best way possible, and then not looking at who's receiving. You know, in the sense, like, we should not discriminate between caste, country, culture, color, religion, language. You just give to the deserving. So today morning I was talking about it. A question came: who should we serve the food? So I said, to the hungry. It does not matter whether the hungry is a human or an animal or a bird. So we formed the Act for Hunger system in such a way. The beings of the water, being, because our body has a lot of water. How do you purify yourself? Serve the beings of the water in the nature, beings of the sky, beings on earth, animals and beings who walking on earth, then human beings, our species. Who in the human beings? The old, the sick, and the children, basically the helpless of the society. Imagine we are serving them or supporting their life. Imagine how rich we will become internally. So altruism is our nature. You don't have to cultivate it. It's like you don't have to teach a fish to swim. If you allow a child to be natural, he will be altruistic. There's no other way. Why we have stopped being altruistic is because of the education system, as I spoke earlier. We taught people to compete. We taught people to compare, children to compete and compare and fight and win. That took the love aspect away from the life. We became machines to compete for something in the future, or a happiness in the future. Happiness does not happen in the future. Happiness, it happens right now. Happiness happens right now. It is not something of the future. So if you can't enjoy your life today, when will you enjoy? We need to understand this. This is exactly what the children need to know. You know, altruism is in our blood, in everybody's blood. You remove the competition, you remove the comparisons, you remove all aspects which are unnatural from you. What remains is altruism, right? So that's something which shines forth when you truly become yourself. So for me, I believe that this is exactly what happened in my life. I took away all the unwanted stuff. I started loving people because I didn't want to compete. I am not in competition with people. I am not in competition with anything. I'm not even trying to be perfect. I know I have all the imperfections. I'm like this. So take it or leave it. You can't really be somebody else, and you don't have to be somebody else. You don't have to be somebody else. You are fine the way you are. Whether you are positive or negative or neutral, doesn't matter. You are what you are. And from there, you can start evolving into a perfect altruist. And even that word is not needed because you are already one.
Yes.
Just in case if you don't know, you can say, hey, look here, this is altruism. So
Absolutely,
this is what
absolutely.
it is. Yeah.
Thank you, Mohanji, being with us for spending your valuable time on behalf of Altruistic Association of India and the channel partner Viewpoint. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much for interviewing me. This was nice. And I wish that a lot more people come into altruistic path and make this world a better place. And the next generation, give this world a better world to the next generation. Thank you, Ramesh and Master, and to all of you for making this happen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Inspired by Altruistic Association of India, a non-profit non-religious entity.